It is time for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I am Jason Foy, as always, joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. This UFC 315 edition on Cinco de Mayo, which, as someone who worked in radio, terrestrial radio marketing for a long time, this was not exactly one of my favorite days and nights of the year because it was absolutely amateur night. And Pete knows exactly what I'm talking about because he works in the bar industry.
Yeah, for sure. Man, oh man. Yeah, some of these nights where, you know, as an adult now, I appreciate it. But like back, you know, for me when I was working it, it's just like it was a headache. You know what I mean? Amateur night. You know which nights are amateur nights, and luckily for me, it's a low key type of night now. I'm grown up, and I'm happy to be in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah, as someone who works in the bar industry on a day in, day out basis, yes, this is, this whole weekend has been a Cinco de Mayo special. So hopefully everyone's out there having a safe week, whether you're watching us live or if you're checking us out after the fact on YouTube or the podcasting platforms. Of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit a like button on this video. It really does help us out a ton. Of course, we come in here following UFC Des Moines. And, really, I think when we talk about a DFS and betting takeaways from that matchup, to me it's about the main event and co-main event. The main event, man, you talk about bringing in someone into your camp that can ultimately really lead you to victory. Corey Sandhagen been working with Ryan Hall. I mean, you could not have had someone better in your camp. If you would have sat there and said, hey, I know the fight's going to hit the ground, my opponent's going to go in for leg locks, Ryan Hall is the perfect fighter to bring in for that matchup. And on the Deiveson Figueiredo side of that equation, and I love the commentary during the fight, his fight IQ was awful in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it showed like the pressure of the situation and what Corey Sandhagen, the volume, just the size for the division, even his wrestling, it's improved so much, and it makes fighters make mistakes. And Deiveson Figueiredo looked desperate at times, and his fight IQ and maybe just general understanding of the 50-50 position led to the injury, a part of his knee, which, led to the end of the fight. But, credit to Corey Sandhagen. It's not necessarily like a fluky thing. It's a legitimate position, working on inverting and getting underneath your opponent, attacking an inverted heel hook, stretching your opponent, making them make the mistake. And he did make that mistake, and his knee popped. So such a weird way to win, though. You know what I mean? Like I definitely didn't anticipate that happening. But, I thought that Sandhagen looked good. I still think that there are some questions that weren't answered. I still think that he's, amongst the elite within the division. Deiveson Figueiredo, he'll bounce back and fight some opponents that aren't championship caliber. But yeah, Corey Sandhagen shined, and it goes to show you, even though that Deiveson Figueiredo had, 5 fights with Brandon Moreno or whatever, like the division does not wait for you. Like the division will move past you, even though if that was at flyweight, and now he's a true bantamweight. MMA just keeps evolving, and it showed in that fight for sure.
And then, of course, the other big takeaway for me, and by the way, I will speak, sometimes in betting on fights, you just got to trust your gut. And my gut just told me take Corey Sandhagen plus 220 to win inside the distance. I was actually looking at if there was going to be a prop on Sandhagen to win in under 4.5 rounds, but I couldn't find a prop out there on that one. So I just took the plus 220, just trusting your gut. Sometimes, look, it's always not going to work out in your favor. I mean, in the co-main event, I took the prop of Bo Nickel over 1.5 takedowns. I want to say I got it plus 165. But felt pretty good about that, going into it. And look, I don't like using the word exposed. I just think that, a flaw in his game came out in this one. And to me, Corey Anderson had a really interesting tweet earlier today. And I want to get your take from being from the fighters and the coaches aspect, where he said, "This fight shows why I tell every wrestler they need to go to a boxing gym and box spar once a week in camp. You have nothing else to rely on, and you learn how to react to getting hit and strike back when your best tool doesn't work. I thank Mark Henry for this lesson."
Yeah, I mean, like the hardest thing is for me personally, I think that a lot of wrestlers struggle learning how to strike. Like a lot of times a wrestler will develop an overhand. That's their first weapon. But outside of that, they do struggle to truly understand striking, and it takes time, right? Like it takes time, rhythm, and range, and whether it's a boxing gym or it's a kickboxing or a Muay Thai gym, you definitely have to get invested in learning the striking arts, because you're not always going to be able to in MMA, right? A couple pitter patter shots, an elbow, some ground and pound makes a wrestler forget about the takedown or makes them abandon the takedown. I mean, the old saying goes, like for jiu-jitsu, you punch a black belt, he becomes a brown belt. You punch him again, he turns into a purple belt, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, same things can be said for wrestlers, right? Like in a tough, crazy sport like wrestling, the toughest athletes are brewed from that, but that doesn't mean that they aren't susceptible to body shots or getting knocked out. I mean, the body has a limit, and Reinier de Ridder really pushed Bo Nickel by just pressuring him, and I noticed immediately. I was like, oh, Bo does not like the pressure at all. He does not like even these little pitter patter shots, and then the just digging to the body over and over, these clinch knees, and and then ultimately it was the beautiful knee to the liver that ended it. And Bo should regroup. The UFC fast tracked him, right? Because he's a big name. He's a superstar. Not many people are willing to risk their careers to go up against an up and comer. So he's kind of in this tough spot where easy fights aren't always going to happen for him. He needs to get tested. He's superstar quality, but Reinier de Ridder proved to be absolutely legit, and maybe more legit than I gave him credit for. Because I fully expected Bo Nickel to do whatever he wanted there, and Reinier de Ridder is a massive, massive fighter for the division.
And I'll say this. I mean, look, and everyone has a right to their opinion. If you want to sit there and say, hey, Bo Nickel got exposed, did you say the same thing when Henry Cejudo got beat in this very similar way against Demetrius Johnson? Oh, he went on to become a 2-division champion. So this isn't, we don't know how the story of Bo Nickel is going to end, but this is a guy that can still seriously be a great talent there. Of course, one of the things that Pete is offering now is he's offering on a Patreon, you can get access to his algorithm. Pete, let everyone know about what's going on your Patreon right now.
Yeah, last week wasn't like the greatest week for us with the projections and everything. I think it was pretty average for me. I think we went 7-5, but looking at the numbers, in hindsight, like, it made a ton of sense, because the algorithm liked Juliana Miller a lot more than I wanted to even give her credit for. I saw what her projected score was, and I just completely ignored it. And I was just like, there's still a pretty big gap, because Petrovic was projected a lot higher than her, like one of the biggest differences between scores. But Juliana Miller still had a very, very high score compared to the other underdogs. And I didn't really understand why. And that was just low-level women's MMA, right? And it struck again. And we got burned by it. Some people had some exposure to Juliana Miller. I was just completely out on her. That was my fault. But I thought Petrovic, it was just very disappointing. I thought that she had a cupcake matchup, and she did not capitalize. But over on Patreon, what I'm doing is I'm offering my projection system, which is my take on what I think and how the fights are going to go. And it's not just a DFS tool. It's a betting tool to kind of give you some indication on which fights I think will be closely contested. So it's not necessarily like it's a projected fantasy points. It's more of a performance score, where you can look and see like, wow, this fight seems to be projected pretty close. Maybe I like the value side on one more, or I like the way that this fighter fits into my lineups or my builds. So maybe I'll increase exposure. So when I was looking at my projections, it makes me boost fighters. It makes me reduce fighters, and it's a good tool for that. In addition to the projections, I have the strength of schedule for every fighter on there, in addition to the strength of their wins. So you can see if they're fighting cupcake matchups or if they've been tested on the regional scene. And today I decided, I was on the drive home, I decided to add 2 more categories that I think can really, really help us and help me chase the top prize, is trying to find these fighters that push a pace, that push or throw tremendous volume. Every now and then you're going to get that Robelis de Spain who hits one time and knocks people out and gets a big score. But more than likely high volume is going to win you fights or going to win you DFS contests. So what I did is I developed a pace rating for each individual fighter, and then for each fight I developed a fight pace rating. So just two little more additions, a part of the Patreon that I think I'm going to really like for my lineup construction, and I hope that you guys do. We already have a decent amount of people that joined the Patreon, more than I anticipated. I just want to say thank you, and thanks for tuning into the Fight HQ podcast, because we truly appreciate it.
Of course, we also have our Discord channel, Fight HQ, totally free to join. Always conversations going on in that room. A lot of great people, throwing breaking news that's being reported out there on X. Of course, one of those breaking news that was thrown in our Discord was the fact of Aaron Bronstetter, a great Canadian MMA reporter, reporting that Benoit Saint-Denis does now have a new opponent. Of course, Joel Alvarez pulling out of the matchup yesterday. 𝗏𝗏 making his return to the UFC. He's been 4-1 since exiting from the UFC, so he stepped up here on short notice. And I believe I've already seen Benoit Saint-Denis is already a 10-1 betting favorite in that matchup.
10?
Should not be a surprise.
Holy moly. Jesus.
Yeah,
I don't.
And there's no DraftKings line out there on at least when I checked on Saint Denis, so I'd imagine he's probably going to be in that 95, 96, 9700 range in terms of this one.
Yeah, I don't know much about 𝗏𝗏 at all, and I didn't see this on my ride home from the gym. But a massive favorite for Benoit Saint-Denis, and it makes sense. And it makes sense that the promotion's putting a Canadian fighter on the card, so it does make sense.
Of course, one of the offers that we do have for our listeners at Stokastic is offering to Fight HQ listeners get 15% off any MMA package they offer. You can click that link in the description below, or you just use that promo code Fight HQ. We will have a DraftKings contest later on this week, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, we're here to talk UFC 315, talking a little game theory in terms of this one. And, Pete, first off, when I looked at the salaries, kind of my initial thought was, the Shevchenko line really did stick out to me at 7,700. I think also the main event, co-main event, I think are going to be just very tough fights to avoid just because of the price point. Some other ones that did, I will tell you this. The Marc-Andre Barriault, Bruno Silva salaries kind of surprising me. You got two guys who are both 0-4 in their last 4 matchups. But then there's some matchups I look at and I say, even though I love Natalia Silva, the price point scares the crap out of me.
I'm a big Natalia Silva fan, so the price point doesn't really surprise me. My initial reaction for this card was, where the hell are the high-end 9,000 options? Because I don't know what I was anticipating, but 𝗫𝐸 is sitting there at 9,200 with Sterling at 9,100, and 40-year-old Jose Aldo, who's been in and out of MMA the past 5 years. It's just very weird top 3 fighters. Now we have Benoit Saint-Denis. That's going to be, my guess, 9,700. It makes... It's just, I don't know what I anticipated to be at the top, but normally we're seeing 95, 94 all the way down. And just to see only a few options, it was just I don't really like, some of these options. So it's just I guess 𝗫𝐸 is the best play on the slate. The main event, in my opinion, is a priority based off of striker versus grappler. The co-main event, I think it's a priority too. I think you have to have both five-round fights a part of your lineup. I think Shevchenko will probably be the chalky underdog that everybody's going to target because of the takedown she landed against Alexa Grasso. Can she do that against Manon Fiorot? We'll have to see. But outside of that, man, I am not impressed with some of these salaries. It seems like a great card to leave salary on the table, and I'm probably going to be getting behind Benoit Saint-Denis. I don't know much about 𝗏𝗏, but I'm sure I'll find some salary to spend up for BSD.
I think one of the things, and I know this was talked about on our Discord channel, this might be a week where we see all the female fights have high-end ownership.
Yeah. You got former champs. You got former champ Alexa Grasso as an underdog. You have current champ Valentina Shevchenko as an underdog. And then you have chalky women's MMA wrestler against an aged veteran and Jessica Andrade, Jasmine Jasudavicius is sitting there at 9,200. So it's like, I think Woody mentioned it. It could really be a women's MMA optimal lineup. Like I definitely can see it happening. I definitely can see two happening all day long.
No Fiorot may be a leverage play this week. We'll see where ownership gets when we get to Saturday, but she very well could be a little bit of a play there. And, I think the other thing is, and, if you're playing in these big field GPPs, you have to ask yourself a question, man. Do I want to get away from either the main event or co-main event?
Yeah,
it's scary. It's scary, but it's
every week people do it and they're successful. But every time I make lineups with it, I have a hard time. You just got to find the 6 other fighters to make it work. But goodness gracious, I don't see how both don't cash. At least one of them have to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that one aren't a part of it because of the salaries. 2, I think it's still most likely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But let's get right into breaking this one down. Of course, the main event, Belal Muhammad making his first title defense as he's challenged by Jack Della Maddalena. Of course, we all know the UFC wanted this to be Shavkat Rakhmonov, but of course, Rakhmonov has an injury. So Jack Della Maddalena gets the opportunity here. Belal, a minus 225 betting favorite, plus 185 for Jack Della Maddalena, who's 7,500 on DraftKings, 8,700 for Belal Muhammad. One of the things about Belal Muhammad, and, look, you can joke about the fact of the guy has spent nearly, approaching 5 hours of cage time inside the UFC octagon with 0 knockdowns. But one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is I was like, well, how many times has Belal been knocked down? He's only been knocked down by 3 fighters. Alan Joe in his UFC debut, he knocked him down 3 times. Vicente Luque, and then Jeff Neal. He has not been knocked down in a fight since 2016. And I think the other thing that stuck out to me is when you look at what happened in his last fight against Leon Edwards, he scored 148 DraftKings points, 9 takedowns, 192 strikes, 12 minutes control time, and he scored 100-plus DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 fights. Now, if you look on the other side, Jack Della Maddalena started his career 0-2. I guess maybe you could have said he was exposed at that point. He's gone on to win 17 in a row, 7-0 in the UFC. We have not seen him since March of last year, that win against Gilbert Burns. This will be his first scheduled 5-round fight in the UFC. On the regional scene, he had 5 fights that were scheduled for 5 rounds. But here, to me, has got to be the biggest question heading into this one, Pete, and I'll get your thoughts. Gilbert Burns, who, look, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. Don't look at him as a wrestler. He was 7 for 11 in takedowns against Jack Della Maddalena. If he can score 7 takedowns, what could Belal Muhammad do?
Yeah, I love this fight. And let me preface it by saying that JDM is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC right now. Like, I'm a big Jack Della Maddalena fan. If you've been listening to Jason and I for years, Khamzat Chimaev is one of my first flag plants out there. Alexander Romanov was a flag plant as well, but Jack Della Maddalena was one of the guys, and Tom Aspinall. So all of those guys are fighters that I really, really, really spoke highly of, and I've been fans of for a very long time. Now, to see Jack Della Maddalena succeed in the UFC, it's been awesome because I'm a big fan. I absolutely love his striking. I do think that there are some clear holes that have been shown in multiple fights now. The Gilbert Burns fight, he's minutes away from losing that bout before he gets up and then he lands a knee and then a big follow-up ground and pound shots. And, it kind of seemed fluky because I remember I bet JDM via KO and I immediately thought that bet was done. Because he was just getting blanketed on the ground. And it was very similar and reminiscent to what Basel Hafez did to him. And Basel Hafez stepped in on short notice and gave JDM a hell of a fight. And Basel took him down and, he stood and traded with him. And I'm like, who the hell is this Basel guy? Because on short notice, he stepped up and he dominated. And, the damage of the rounds did belong to JDM. But there's an argument out there that 𝗲𝘁𝐻𝐵 Hafez did enough to win that fight. I mean, but with the scoring criteria, with damage outweighing everything, like, yes, JDM had the more powerful strikes, but he was controlled for a large majority of that fight. And ultimately what I'm getting to is that even back in the Contender Series against Ange Loosa, JDM has always shown this side to him where, like, he's very talented in the boxing department. He blends stances very well. He digs to the body at some of the best rates in all of MMA. His takedown defense is poor, in my opinion. It's below average. I think poor might be too hard of a word, but it's below average. And he does a great job of getting back to his feet, but for a large majority of rounds, he's getting controlled. And I don't love seeing that. You know, like, Gilbert Burns is a fantastic grappler, but I do hold Belal Muhammad's grappling and wrestling to a higher degree than Gilbert Burns in 2025. I mean, Belal Muhammad did his best Khabib Nurmagomedov impression against Leon Edwards, and man, oh man, did he look dominant out there. He has been training. He's been training with Mike Valley, and, you know, Valley Flow has really turned out to be a surprise gym. Juliana Pena, Yair Rodriguez, Charles Radtke, Ignacio Bahamondes, Belal Muhammad. I mean, there's bodies out there, and there's very talented, good striking with good wrestling. So I love what I'm seeing from Belal Muhammad. And Belal Muhammad, honestly, has turned a corner, and he's looking to be completely dominant. Like, I really think that this is an interesting matchup for sure. You have Belal Muhammad with 3.8 takedowns per 25 minutes, which I actually think it's going to be a lot more in this bout, because Jack Della Maddalena will get taken down, will give up a whizzer, will get his back taken. The striking has improved for Belal Muhammad. Obviously, that is JDM's path to victory, is knocking out Belal Muhammad, similar to how Vicente Luque did. Land a shot, defend a takedown, get up, and knock him out. But there's so many red flags, right? Like, JDM's coming off a pretty gruesome injury. He's been on the shelf for a little bit. I think they kind of put him into this spot a little too soon, if I'm being completely honest. Like, his striking is some of the best in the division, but I think this is a nightmare of a matchup in a way, because he does not have the takedown defense or the jiu-jitsu to counter. I mean, how many guillotine chokes did he pull against 𝗲𝘁𝐻𝐵 Hafez? His corner was going nuts because he just kept pulling guillotine, and was allowing himself to get taken down. So I think the grappling IQ and just the wrestling IQ is lacking. So with all that being said, I like Belal Muhammad here. I like Belal Muhammad to not get knocked out on the feet. You know, the strikes attempted are pretty similar, 10.2 for Belal Muhammad per minute. Jack Della Maddalena, 12.7 per minute. You know, the takedowns, 3.8 for Belal Muhammad per 25 minutes. I really do expect him to attempt 15 takedowns in this fight. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked for him to get like 7 of them, you know, 7 or 8 of them. I have this projected as a very close fight because JDM has tremendous volume, and he does have a path to victory of keeping it on the feet, throwing crazy volume, making, you know, getting back to his feet. He does a good job at getting back to his feet. But man, I can't see, I don't know. It's just too many red flags for me, right? Like, big main event spot, big 5 rounds. Don't really know about that. Coming off an injury, shown issues with this style in the past, and now he's facing one of the best styles out there in the wrestling department. So it's a long-winded way of me saying I think the pace of Belal Muhammad, especially with the grappling, is just going to be too much, and I think he's just going to best JDM over 5 rounds. Even though I do view it and have it projected as a close bout, I'm leaning Belal Muhammad, man. I'm leaning Belal Muhammad, but if you're back in JDM, you got balls of steel because you're not worried about the takedowns.
Well, the one thing you have to point out, and it's a stat line that we pointed out last month when Alexander Volkanovski was fighting for a title. The stat line is not good for fighters who are over 35 years old in title fights between 125 pounds and 170. Now, Belal is one of those wins. He is one of these wins,
Yeah.
but I believe the stat is 4-30. 4 wins, 30 losses. So history tells you, history's not on the side of Belal Muhammad, but look, Pete, you just have to look at the fight film and say, we've seen the issues JDM has had recently with being unable to stop the takedown. I mentioned about the last matchup with Gilbert Burns. You mentioned about 𝗵𝗁, which was a short notice replacement fight coming in there. I think Belal is a play there. It should be noted Jack Della Maddalena did bring in Craig Jones to help him with the grappling aspect, the jiu-jitsu aspect, to get him ready for this matchup. But I think Belal Muhammad gets the job done. And I think for a lot of fight fans, you may not love the fighting style of Belal Muhammad, and he may be the most disrespected champion in UFC history. But if you want a super fight, you may want to see him get the win here because, all signs point to him and Islam Makhachev will not fight each other. They've trained together in the past. They're friends. So maybe that will lead us to Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. There is very much a big belief that the reason we have not heard what Islam Makhachev's next fight is going to be is because he's waiting to see what happens here in this title fight here. But for me, Belal Muhammad is going to be the pick. Then the co-main event is a women's flyweight title fight as Valentina Shevchenko defends the title against Manon Fiorot. Manon Fiorot, a minus 150 betting favorite, plus 125 for Shevchenko. She's 7,700 on DK. Manon Fiorot is 8,500 over on DraftKings. This is the first time Valentina Shevchenko takes on someone not named Alexa Grasso since 2022. She's gone the distance in 3 of her last 4 fights. When you look at that trilogy matchup against Alexa Grasso, scored 146.5 DraftKings points, 8 takedowns, 193 strikes, 16 minutes of control time. She's 37 years old, and you know me, Father Time, I says catch up to every fighter. I don't care who you are here. But one of the things that you mentioned about the takedowns, it's not just the 8 takedowns she had against Alexa Grasso. In her last 5 fights, she has landed 23 takedowns overall in her UFC career, 64 takedown percent accuracy. When you think about Team Shevchenko, you think of Muay Thai. But, of course, she's been able to really show the wrestling in this one. No Fiorot, 7-0 in the UFC. Last 5 wins have come via decision after she started her UFC career with back-to-back TKO, KO wins. We've not seen her since March of last year. That was that decision win against Erin Blanchfield. She's 35 years old. And, Pete, I think really when we talk about this matchup, really comes down to is if Shevchenko is going to come in there with a takedown mindset, can No Fiorot stop him?
I mean, she's done a great job stopping takedowns throughout her UFC career. I mean, Manon Fiorot's takedown defense sits at 93%, which is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, granted, she hasn't faced Shevchenko, who is one of the best women mixed martial artists of all time. And Valentina Shevchenko is so well-rounded that I think that she's able to land takedowns on people because they don't know what to expect. With Erin Blanchfield, that takedowns are coming, and that's really her only path to victory. She did have some success standing against Manon Fiorot, but ultimately she needs to fight to hit the mat. Shevchenko can strike with the best of them. I mean, extensive Muay Thai background, very, very good striker, excellent kicks to the head, more of a square stance, and Manon Fiorot is more of a karate-esque stance, lots of footwork, great utilization of space, great utilization of a lead leg sidekick to keep her adversaries away. When she goes forward, she throws in combinations. She puts excellent combinations together, and she defends takedowns. And she's wise to space, and she knows how to cut angles. She knows how to hit you with volume. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know what I expected the betting lines to be, but I thought it was going to be like Manon Fiorot as an underdog. People are backing Manon Fiorot, and I agree with them. I do agree with them. I'm backing Manon Fiorot here. Obviously, you have a former champion as an underdog. You have the current champion as the underdog, so it's a very tempting. And when you look at the box scores, you see the wrestling, that she's implemented against Alexa Grasso. It's absolutely unbelievable. But that's not Manon Fiorot. Manon Fiorot has good takedown defense. She has great range control, And I do think that Shevchenko may have some success, but I can't see her completely ragdolling Manon Fiorot. I just can't, because I think Manon is pretty damn physical. I think that Manon is she's a weird style and she's so unique. I think she's going to give Shevchenko problems because I don't think Shevchenko's ever dealt with an opponent like Manon Fiorot. And you can definitely say the same thing for Manon, but I think that you find more Thai fighters similar to Shevchenko than you do of the, lots of side kicks, lots of lateral movement, lots of punching in combinations and aggressiveness and volume. I mean, the volume's unmatched. Like, let's look at this. Shevchenko, who is a very precise and smart MMA fighter, attempts 6.07 strikes per minute. If you look at what Manon Fiorot is attempting, she's attempting more than double that. She's attempting 15.26. So she's extremely active. So her activity level is vastly outweighs Shevchenko. And I find that super interesting. Obviously, the projections that I have Manon Fiorot boosted a lot because of the 93% takedown defense rating. If you knock that down to let's call it 60-70%. Shevchenko will project a lot better, but I can't alter that because that is Manon Fiorot's true takedown defense in the UFC. It's just, will it hold up against a championship caliber opponent? We'll have to see. But with all that being said, Jason, I just think the more active fighter is clearly Manon Fiorot. I'm not expecting a submission threat from either one of these fighters. I can see Manon hurting Shevchenko if she starts to get desperate. I can see Shevchenko trying to pin her against the cage, but man, I don't know, man. I might be buying into the hype, but I like Manon Fiorot here, Jason. I like the price tag too. I like the 5 rounds, and I love that volume. I mean, 15 strikes attempted per minute, while Shevchenko is attempting 16. That's ridiculous. And granted, like, Shevchenko's takedowns per 15 minutes sit at 4.57, meaning she's going to attempt about 7 in this bout. 4.57 for a 25-minute fight against a 93% takedown defense rating. I just don't know how she's going to have that much success. She may have 2 takedowns or whatnot, but I don't see that outweighing what Manon can do on the feet. So give me the 8,500 Manon Fiorot. I like her quite a bit here, Jason.
I think when you talk about on the DraftKings side of this equation, Manon Fiorot may be a leverage play this week just because of people looking at that price tag of 7,700 on Valentina Shevchenko and saying, look, her path is clear. Go ahead, go get those takedowns. Of course, that was something Aaron Blanchfield was unable to get done. On the betting side of that equation, I will be very interested to see what the takedown prop is on Valentina Shevchenko. I know my book usually doesn't put those out till Friday or Saturday, so I'll be interested to see what that line is, to see where, maybe I can get a little edge there. I mean, look, if I'm placing a bet on Shevchenko, I probably just take the plus 125 and don't try to, prop hunt. But if I was going to prop hunt, I'd probably prop hunt and takedowns and the decision prop there. And, you never, I think at this stage of your career, you never want to trust a 37-year-old just because of that's what history tells us in this sport. But I'm going to say Shevchenko gets the job done here, but don't mind the Manon Fiorot call in terms of that one. Next up, we got Jose Aldo take on Zahabi. Zahabi, a plus 190 betting underdog, minus 235 for Jose Aldo, who's 9,000 on DK. Zahabi, 7,200. One of the most interesting stats I found on this fight, there's only a 1-year age difference.
I know. I saw that too. I saw that too because I sat there and I go, I did it all. I'm like, is that right? Zahabi's freaking 38 or 36 or whatever the hell these people are. I'm like, I saw that too. I'm glad you saw that.
Yeah. When I was over at UFCstats.com, put some stats together. That was very much the thing that I saw. I was like, whoa, only 1-year age difference here. Jose Aldo, of course, the last time we saw was that split decision loss against Mario Batista. His last 6 fights have gone decision. Of course, he's primarily been a decision guy throughout his UFC run. 14 of his 22 UFC fights have gone decision. Zahabi has won 5 straight after going 1-2 in the UFC. 5 of his 8 UFC fights have gone the distance. I remember last last time we were talking about 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi fighting, we were like, man, this guy's probably got the quietest 4-fight winning streak in the UFC.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely thought that 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi wasn't good. I really did. I was like always saying to myself, how is Firas Zahabi such a fantastic coach, but yet his brother's not a good fighter? Like, it made no sense to me. And maybe I just was completely out on Zahabi and not giving him credit. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, this guy's winning fights. This guy's beating Basharat. This guy's beating Aoriqi Lang. What the hell's going on? This guy ain't that bad. You know, I almost think that his later career is better than his earlier career. This fight's super weird. And I'll tell you what, it seems really wide. And I don't agree with how wide the fight lines are, the betting lines are, because there's no way I'm playing 9,000 Aldo. I'm just not. And the reason I'm not is because Jose Aldo is, you know, he's been a decision machine. His past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights have all gone the distance. But not only that, it's just like the inconsistencies in MMA, the retirement, the boxing chase, now back to MMA. He's one of the best to ever do it. I mean, he's clearly one of my favorite fighters of all time. When he utilized his leg kicks, he destroyed everybody from the WEC to the UFC. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. He doesn't need to prove anything else. So, like, if you ask Jose Aldo or you ask 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi, like, what's your motivation like to beat 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi? Or what's your motivation like to beat Jose Aldo? Like, there's no way that Jose is more motivated than 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi to get this victory. Like, I really think that 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi would love nothing more than to have the feather in his cap and have a win over Jose Aldo on his career. Now, the fight is super interesting, and the fight line is wide because when you break down the stats and you look into it deeper, they're pretty similar. They're very, very similar, Jason. I mean, like, if you see Jose Aldo, 3.62 significant strikes landed per minute. 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi, 4.06. They both have 46% accuracy in their striking. And then you look at their volume and their attempted, and you have Jose Aldo attempting 7.8 strikes per minute. 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi attempting 8.8. So, like, it's too close for comfort here for me to, like, have Jose Aldo. He can definitely land a shot. You know, he's been pinned up against the cage in most of his recent bouts against Mario Bautista, against Merab Dvalishvili. They pin him against the cage because he has spectacular 92% takedown defense. I think one of the highest in the entire UFC. But, like, even on the feet, they're like, so the combinations aren't ending in leg kicks. They're not long combinations. He's throwing 3.62 significant strikes, or landing 3.62 significant strikes per minute. And then if you look, you know, Jose Aldo ain't attempted takedowns. He has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, of course, but he's not attempting takedowns. 0.49 per 15 minutes translates to less than 1 a fight. 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi, 0.16 takedowns per 15 minutes, 14% accuracy translates to 1.14 takedowns per 15 minutes. I can definitely see 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi pinning him against the cage to win minutes and to slow down the momentum of Jose Aldo. And it just seems like a spot where the name of Jose Aldo, what he's done in the UFC, like, everybody's going to be on him this week, and good luck to you, because I just don't know if I would want that. I wouldn't want to go up against a Canadian in Canada, right? Going to have the hometown crowd, going to have maybe that hometown bias a part of the judging, then going up against a Zahabi game plan, then going up against a fighter who has similar metrics and data that you do, so similar output, actually more strikes attempted per minute. It just seems like a stay away for me, and the pace doesn't seem to be anything spectacular. It's actually one of the slowest pace fights on the card, according to my pace rating out there. Yeah, the line's wide, and because the line's wide, I'm going to pick Zahabi, but I could totally see how everybody's picking Jose Aldo. It's just like, it's a value play for me. So I'll say the value's on Zahabi at this number. But 4 or 5 years ago, if you told me Jose Aldo gets beat by 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi, I would have told you you're absolutely nuts. But yeah, so for me, I'll side with the value. I'll go 𝗲𝗄 Zahabi.
Yeah, I mean, you don't love the price tag here on Jose Aldo. I think if you're aiming Zahabi, the key is you got to constantly be putting pressure on Jose Aldo. If he sits back, I think Jose picks him apart. But the $9,000 price tag, I don't love. I mean, the minus 235 price tag on the betting side, I don't love either. I would be looking either side wins via decision. What kind of number can you get there on the betting side? But this may be a matchup that we talked. I mentioned a little while ago. 𝗵𝗏 may be a leverage point. This may be the leverage fight of the week. I mean, there may not be a ton of ownership, but there may, Eamon Zahabi will have more ownership than Jose Aldo does, just because of the price tag out there, which is still. I'm baffling. I can't even say that. I mean, yeah, it's like you said. If you would have said that 5 years ago, I mean, 5 years ago, if I said, "Hey, Eamon Zahabi is going to be fighting Jose Aldo," I've been like, what? Wait, Eamon Zahabi stepping up on 24 hours notice? Like,
Right.
it's just not a fight you would expect to come together. The price tag really does stick out to you in terms of that one. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got Alexa Grasso taking on 𝗤𝗲 Silva. She is a Silva minus 235, betting favorite plus 190 for Grasso. Silva 8,800 on DK. Grasso is 7,400. Of course, this is the first fight for Alexa Grasso since losing the flyweight title. This will actually be her first 3-round scheduled fight since 2022. She's 8-4-1 in the UFC. 10 of her 13 UFC fights have gone the distance. Prior to her trilogy fight with Valentina Shevchenko, she had scored 90-plus DraftKings points in her previous 4 fights. On the other side, Silva, 4 of her 6 UFC fights have gone the distance. Her last 3 have gone the distance. Her last fight against Jessica Andrade, she scored 117 strikes, which led to a DraftKings score of 78.7. She's only scored more than 86 DraftKings points once. That was against Victoria Leonardo, where she scored 108.7. And that's kind of where, on the DraftKings side of this equation, Pete, which kind of concerns me, is you're asking me to pay $8,800 for a fighter that I just kind of sit back and say, like, God, can't she pay off the price tag?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? Like, I definitely believe in 𝗤𝗲 Silva more in 2025 than I do Jose Aldo. So, like, if you were giving me a 1-for-1, like, who are you picking, Jose Aldo or 𝗤𝗲 Silva for more upside? I think I'm going to go with the upside of the younger fighter, the fighter that is on the upward trajectory, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't think that 𝗤𝗲 Silva's style is the best for DFS production, right? Like, she utilizes a lot of footwork. Similar to 𝗵𝗏, she utilizes a good sidekick, has a great Taekwondo background. So her kicks are some of her best attributes out there. Her footwork, her speed too. She's so damn fast compared to the rest of the division. She throws 11 strikes per minute, whereas Alexa Grasso throws 10.2. She hits with better accuracy, 47%, where Grasso is 41%. That the striking defense of Grasso isn't at the same caliber as 𝗤𝗲 Silva, because Grasso's got that Mexican style boxing. So 58% striking defense rating for Grasso, 64% for 𝗤𝗲 Silva. And a lot of that 64% is because of the footwork, right? Like, you don't have to be so good at defense when footwork is your key of avoiding shots. Like, that's kind of like how I am, right? Like, I don't stand there like a boxer or stand there right in front of my opponent. Like, I move a lot, and I utilize a lot of footwork to avoid shots or set up my shots, especially with me being a taller fighter. Now, the takedown department is interesting here because back in the day, 𝗤𝗲 Silva was able to be taken down outside the UFC, but inside the UFC, man, she's grown to have like a 𝗵𝗏 good takedown defense, like 91% takedown defense rating. Super interesting. Alexa Grasso down to 54%, and that's probably largely due to the Shevchenko matchups, right? She kept getting taken down over and over and over in all of them. So her takedown defense sits at 54%, and I do think that is something 𝗤𝗲 Silva could look to implement if things get a little dicey. I don't expect it to, but you never know, right? I mean, like, 𝗤𝗲 Silva did land 2 takedowns in her debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius. She actually beat Jasmine Jasudavicius, and man, oh man, did that win age well. So I think she has that kind of ace up her sleeve, if you will. And I like the way that she's going. I could see why people want to value hunt and go after Alexa Grasso, and maybe they're not sold on 𝗤𝗲 Silva. I mean, the strikes attempted are pretty similar, 11 for Silva, 10 for Grasso. But I'm telling you, when you take the footwork into consideration, and just the movement, it makes me go Natalia Silva. I mean, like we've seen Grasso get taken down. We've seen Grasso come from behind and pull off a submission win. So like the jiu-jitsu aspect is one where it's making me scratch my head, but I don't think it's going to have much effect in this fight. So I view Silva to have a higher pace. I view this fight to have a decent pace in relation to the rest of the card. So yeah, give me Natalia Silva here. Despite the price tag, I like her. I think one of these days she'll pick up some more knockouts, or hurting people to the body, or just really dominating her opposition. But she's kind of doing like a Manon Fiorot impression out there, and she's just really dominating the division. So give me Natalia Silva here.
I think if you are looking at taking Alexa Grasso in this matchup, I think your thought process is going to be is that she looks to get the fight to the ground. Doesn't try to just make this a stand-up kickboxing matchup. The price tag just concerns me on Silva, just paying off that price tag. When you look at I'd rather get to an 8,500 Manon Fiorot. I'd rather get to an 8,700 Belal Muhammad. I mean, there's other fighters in that price range I just would rather get to, just because I think that she just stands up in there. Can she go out there and, let's just say get 115, 120 total strikes, and, maybe she sneaks a takedown in there, gets you some 5 points here. That to me is my only concern. I do like Natalia Silva to go out there and win this matchup. I think the hype is justified in terms of her, but the fantasy score upside is just the concerning part for me in terms of that matchup.
Would you pick Aldo, or would you pick Silva in a 1-for-1 single entry upside?
Probably Silva.
Okay. All right. So we agree on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just, it's two fights that I don't really see me leaning on in terms of, when I'm talking about like a core lineup. I don't see me leaning on either one of those matchups. Benoit Saint-Denis going to take on 𝗁𝗏. We don't have any lines on this one. Look, I haven't had really a chance to dive into, especially what 𝗁𝗏 has done outside of just going over his Tapology page, see what he's done. Strength competition, Canadian regional scene stuff. I mean, let's just be honest. Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be a huge number. He's been prepared to take on Joel Alvarez in terms of this matchup. I mean, for 𝗁𝗏, look, you got to take this opportunity. This was your way. 𝗁𝗏 has not fought since June of last year. A first-round win against a fighter who is 25-29 in his career. So me and P, we'll put in some. Once we have some chance to more kind of do more deep diving in on this matchup, we'll break this one over in our Discord channel. Let's move over next. We got a matchup between Mike Malott and Charles Radtke. Malott 8,900 on DK, a minus 245 betting favorite. Charles Radtke 7,300 on DK. He is a plus 200 betting underdog. In this one, Malott 4-1 in the UFC. Of course, that only loss, that third round loss against Neil Magny. 3 of his 4 UFC wins have come via finish, but is coming off a decision win back in November against Trevin Giles, where he only got 53 DraftKings points in that matchup. Charles Radtke 3-1 in the UFC. His last 3 fights have all ended in the opening round, scoring 117 points in his first round victory in his last matchup. And, the stat lines, the differences in the stat lines, I think, are one thing that really stick out to me, P, in this one. Takedowns per 15 minutes of fighting. This really shouldn't be a surprise where Mike Malott trains. 2.27 takedowns per 15 minutes of fighting, 0.59 for Radtke. Radtke has not been taken down in his time in the UFC, but of course he's only faced 4 takedowns in his UFC tenure.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting fight, and one that I really like, Jason. And the reason I like this is because when I look at the strikes attempted for both of these fighters, it makes you think that Mike Malott is going to throw more, be a little bit more aggressive, and one where, like, I don't know, man, like Mike Malott's kind of burned me, and I've picked against him so many times. I don't know why, but I picked against him, but I didn't think Neil Magny was going to be the guy to come from behind and break him. I see some holes. He has great power. He's a pretty solid wrestler. The cardio seems to be his worst attribute, truthfully. The heart seems to be somewhat of a problem as well. His submission skills, his guillotine chokes are fantastic. Charles Radtke is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so I'm not really worried about the submission skills of Mike Malott, so that's kind of out the window for me. And then when I look at the striking, right, like Malott throws 8.36 strikes per minute, whereas Radtke throws 6.37 strikes per minute. And so obviously the edge of the attempted is for Malott, but when you look at the accuracy, Malott only has a 46% accuracy rating, whereas Radtke has a 53% accuracy rating. So with all that being said, man, it's like it's a slight lean towards Mike Malott in the striking, but I think the firepower, the devastating shots, I think they do belong to Charles Radtke here. I have to tell you, I think that Radtke is slept on. I think he's very, very good. I picked Carlos Prates to knee him in the liver exactly like that, and it's exactly what happened. But that doesn't mean I'm low on Charles Radtke. It just means in that specific matchup, I didn't like what I saw. I saw his body was susceptible. Now, the wrestling in this fight, Jason, is one that I find so interesting because Charles Radtke's been training with Belal Muhammad, a part of Valley Flow Striking, VFS, as I mentioned, Ignacio Bahamondes, Yair Rodriguez, Juliana Pena. Just the room is a very talented room. They got some fighters from Kazakhstan in there too. So like super, super talented room. The takedowns per 15 minutes for Charles Radtke sits at 0.59. His takedown accuracy is 12%. So you're like, my God, this guy can't take anybody down. But at least he's attempting. I mean, that comes down to 4.9 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. So I like that. And guess what? Mike Malott's takedown defense is awful, on UFCstats.com. Mike Malott's takedown defense sits at 0.16, so 16%. That's crazy. 16% for Mike Malott because he's so welcoming of getting people to take him down to try to threaten them with guillotine chokes. This is a fight where that 16% takedown defense is going to get tested. It seems to be completely overblown. I don't really think it's that bad, but I do think that Charles Radtke has fantastic wrestling that hasn't really been shown. He has the ability to take somebody down. He's going up against somebody who's willing to pull guillotine, and I don't think he's going to have success doing so. On the flip side, you have Mike Malott, 2.27 takedowns per 15 minutes, 56% accuracy, means he's attempting 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. But Charles Radtke hasn't been taken down yet in the UFC. So, I mean, like, you look at the strength of schedule of who Charles Radtke has fought. Semelsberger maybe might take him down. Blood Diamond definitely not taking him down. Gilbert Urbina, probably. I would expect that. Urbina went 0 for 1 in the takedown department. Carlos Prates isn't taking him down. It's a very interesting and compelling fight because I feel like they will negate each other in a lot of areas. Mike Malott is 1 year younger, has 4 inches in the height plus reach department. But yeah, that 16% takedown defense rating, Jason, it speaks to me. And I'm kind of like riding high on my friend's gym, VFS, and I'm really liking the rub that Belal Muhammad could be giving to Charles Radtke throughout this camp. They're kind of all in camp together. So give me Radtke to pull off the upset over Mike Malott. I think that he could hurt him on the feet. I also think he can win over 15 minutes.
Just to kind of counter something you said there.
Okay.
If I sat there and said a fighter was 1 for 6 in takedown attempts against Blood Diamond, your response would be what?
City kickboxing, known for takedown defense.
Look, I'm just trying to throw the other side. Look,
bro,
I think that
horrific performance.
I think that to me, this is striker versus grappler. I think Mike Malott's going to try to get the fight to the ground. I think Radtke's going to want to keep the fight on the feet. That's my style. Like when the question comes up later in the show about punt plays, because of the salary of $7,300, Charles Radtke, I think, is going to be a very tremendous punt play this week just because of what the fantasy score upside for him could be. I mean, like, look, on the betting side, I'm probably looking at what's the decision prop on Mike Malott and what is the inside the distance, and probably more notably, what is the win by TKO KO prop for Charles Radtke. But yeah, when you started mentioning about Blood Diamond, I go, oh man, I'm going to have to bring this stat up.
Hey,
I'm going to have to bring it up.
My man Radtke stuffed all 3 takedown attempts from Blood Diamond. Even Blood Diamond was trying to take him down, and Radtke just, pushing off that Division I wrestler Blood Diamond like nothing. No, I mean, listen, this fight's weird, right? Like, it's really weird.
Yeah.
The 16% takedown defense rating is terrible, and it's definitely ballooning the projection for Charles Radtke.
Yeah.
But I got to go with the stats of what they are. You know what I mean? Like, I can't make stuff up, but I still think if it's on the feet, the firepower of Radtke is legit. So I'm just interested. I think it's the cardio of Malott is such a worry for me that I do see Radtke being able to push a pace and wear him out, because I think the black belts are going to nullify each other, and then we're going to see who's better.
All right, you got a roster 1. Mike Malott, Jose Aldo, Natalia Silva.
I think it's still Mike Malott, and I think it's because even though I'm on Radtke, Malott has upside. When he wins, he finds a submission. He counters. He hits you with a knockout shot. He does have good wrestling in his own right. I mean, I think that's got to be it, and he has upside. The 𝗵𝗁 performance was kind of awful. He scored 53.6. If he goes out there fighting Radtke like that, I think my boy Radtke beats him up.
Yeah. Next up, we got another female matchup here. We got Andrade taking on Double J. Jasmine, a minus 290 betting favorite, plus 235 for Andrade, who's 7,000 on DK. Jasmine is 9,200. Of course, Jessica Andrade, things have not gone well for her in her past 6 fights, 2-4 in her last 6 fights. 3 of those 4 defeats have come via stoppage, coming off a decision loss against Natalia Silva. I do wonder, one of the notes I wrote here about Jessica Andrade is I said, is striking defense starting to wear down? Natalia Silva landed 117 strikes. Marina Rodriguez, 82 strikes. Now, those are both 3-round matchup. Of course, both going up against strikers in that one. One of the things that, I looked at here is the takedown average per 15 minutes of fighting. I was actually kind of surprised how close both these fighters are. Andrade, 2.33. Jessica at 2.55. Of course, now the strikes landed per minute is a totally different story as Jessica Andrade doubles her up. But, one of my notes about Jasmine is she scored multiple takedowns in 5 straight fights. She's done tremendous on DraftKings scoring. I was even kind of surprised how well she's done on DraftKings scoring in her last 4 fights. 169.4, 90.6, 103.5, and 101.9. But then I said, let me take a little deep dive into Jessica Andrade. She has had 28 UFC fights. She has only been taken down multiple times by Tatiana Suarez. Suarez got 3 takedowns. Valentina Shevchenko, 7. Tisha Pennington, 2. Raquel Pennington, who she fought twice. Raquel got 2 takedowns in each of those matchups. And Liz Carmouche 3 times. It's kind of crazy to think about, when you maybe think about maybe the kryptonite of Jessica Andrade being takedown defense. There's a lot of fighters out there who have struggled to take her down multiple times, Pete.
Yeah, and Jessica Andrade has very powerful wrestling. I mean, for the most part, she's bounced between weight classes throughout her career. Just taking fights for a little bit different motivation lately versus how she used to. I mean, like, championship aspirations was her focus in the past. Climbing the ladder, conquering, and then trying to maintain. But, when she lost and, dealt with some personal issues, she started getting super active. And I feel like the IQ of accepting certain fights or not having preparation or not having camps, like, it definitely shone through. And you could see that there has been a drastic drop off in the past 6 fights for Jessica Andrade. I mean, Erin Blanchfield lost, got knocked out against Yan Xiaonan, got subbed against Tatiana Suarez, beat Mackenzie Dern to a pulp, had a split decision over Marina Rodriguez, which doesn't really age all that great after seeing Marina Rodriguez last week. And then getting pieced up in the small cage against Natalia Silva. If that was in the big cage, Natalia Silva just dances all around her, even worse. But, it goes to show you that, like, Father Time's undefeated. I do think that Jessica Andrade is dangerous, and she always will be dangerous if you fight the fight that benefits her. If you stand in front of her, of course she can land some shots. She's got super power. She also has a submission game that's kind of underrated, but for the most part, she's an undersized John Lineker out there, and I think that she can be beaten against a fighter like Jasmine Jasudavicius, who throws with tremendous volume. I shouldn't say throws with tremendous volume, fights with tremendous volume. 8.24 strikes attempted per minute, 6.44 attempted for Jessica Andrade. The takedown attempts per 15 minutes sits at almost 6 for Jasudavicius and 4 for Jessica Andrade. But, it sounds close. It sounds even until you realize that Jasudavicius is 6 inches taller and has a 6-inch reach advantage as well. So she has 12 inches in the height plus reach department. So I think like these crazy numbers that were initially ballooning the Jessica Andrade projection are part of my model at 6.44 strikes landed per minute. I think that's completely overblown because she's 5'1", 62-inch reach versus Jasudavicius, who's 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. So massive size difference here. I think Jasudavicius is getting better. I don't think I can say the same thing about Jessica Andrade. I think Jasudavicius is incorporating jiu-jitsu. So she has a great Darce choke, goes for an anaconda, just very good control in the front headlock position. Not only that, she's capable and willing to incorporate ground and pound, which can really boost her totals and her scoring as we've seen thus far. And I think that Jessica Andrade, it sounds cliche and it sounds like, oh, you're just going off a highlight of what has happened to Jessica Andrade. I can see her getting crucifixed, elbowed again, Jason. I really can. I can see her getting put on her back after maybe getting a little too aggressive on the feet, being unable to get back to her feet, and getting pounded out with relentless ground and pound. And that's kind of what I see happening here because I think Jasmine's getting better. And I think the 12 inches in the height plus reach is just going to be too much for Andrade to get inside and have success with. But Jasmine needs to wrestle. If Jasmine doesn't wrestle, then good luck. She's stupid. But yeah, I think that she's going to project decently well. I think that this fight is a solid fight to target. And because Jasmine is such a prolific wrestler, she has good upside. So at 9,200, I'm backing Jasmine Jasudavicius despite the data and despite the metrics of Jessica Andrade having high volume. I think the height and reach advantage totally negate that.
More times than not, I think that for Jasmine to be optimal here, she's got to get a takedown every round. She needs 3 takedowns for her to be optimal. If she can't get the finish, which overall, she's not been a finisher in the UFC. 7 of her 9 UFC fights have gone the distance. She's not historically speaking in the UFC has not been a finisher, but I think you do bring up some great points about, kind of where Jessica Andrade is. But I just think overall, as you think about more times how this fight plays out, is if Jasmine doesn't get those takedowns, the path to being optimal at 9,200, I don't see it. I don't. I don't. If you tell me this is a fight on the feet, give me Jessica Andrade all day long. I don't think Jasmine wants to sit there and have a striking match with Jessica Andrade. She doesn't want to feel that power. I think she's going to try to get the fight to the ground. Now, look, if this is a 15-minute fight and she can get a takedown every round, and you mentioned the ground and pound, maybe she ends up getting a crucial position, she might be able to get a ton of points, and she's been able to shoot that in the last couple of fights. But, like, once again, this week, I looked at price tag, and I was like, damn. Even on the betting side, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, dude, Jasmine's been on a tear. I ain't that surprised. Jessica Andrade has looked awful in her losses. Like, she beat up Mackenzie Dern, who is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who thinks she can box. And then she had a split decision with Marina Rodriguez, who can't defend takedowns to save her life. And then they had a kickboxing matchup. But, Jasmine, if you look, beat up Priscilla Cachoeira, beat up Fatima Climb, beat up Ariana De Silva, beat up Mayra Bueno Silva. I think that's her best notable win because Bueno Silva has challenged for
Okay.
the title. But even Bueno Silva, right? She took her down 3 times. She had 7 minutes of control time. The control time is ridiculous. So, like, she may not have high volume takedowns, but if she gets a takedown, she has great control, utilizing ground and pound, looking for a submission. Whether she gets it or not, she keeps her opponents there. And control time is a good thing that we like here for DFS purposes. 5 minutes against Ariana De Silva, against Fatima Klein. 4 takedowns and almost 8 minutes of control time. So, and then of course against Priscilla Cachoeira, where she hit her with an anaconda choke, 11 minutes of control time. I just think we're seeing Jasmine on the up and Jessica Andrade on the decline. And I saw some photos of Jessica training. Dude, she looked heavy. And I don't know if it was just like the way the camera was or when the freaking videos were, but I was surprised. I was like, what weight class is this girl fighting at? But I think it's because she's 5 feet. So it's just like, my God. But she looked, I've seen her look a lot better. So I'll be picking Jasmine Jasudavicius.
Mitch, this question coming from Santa, and Cheever said he was already seeing all 3 female fights in a finish. I say no.
No way.
Yeah, that's kind of where I sit in terms of that one. And I more times than not, I think Jasmine wins. I think it's by decision. That's just, and history tells you that in terms of that one. Next up, we got Modestas Bukauskas taking on Ian Cutelaba. Cutelaba -110, Bukauskas -115. This is your 8,000 A200 fight of the week. Cutelaba is your A200 fighter. Bukauskas is at 8,000. Modestas is 4-1 since coming back to the UFC, but I mean, look, not the greatest of competition that he has fought since coming back to the UFC. His first 2 fights coming back, scoring 51 points against Pedro, then 56 points against Zach Palga. Then his last 2 fights have gone out there practicing out 83.7. In his last matchup, going out there getting 106 points. He will have a 3-reach advantage in this matchup. Cutelaba has won back-to-back fights in 3 of 4, coming off that submission win back in February against Ebo. He has scored 100 plus DK points in 2 of his last 3 wins, but like Ian Cutelaba is the definition of an up and down fighter in the UFC.
I don't know if I've ever gotten an Ian Cutelaba fight correct. I have to tell you. I mean, I don't know. I should start tracking it, but my God, I feel like I've picked poorly for Ian Cutelaba. I mean, let's call him what he is. He's a very, very good wrestler. One that once he gets his takedowns going, he chains them together over and over and over. Great mat returns, good control, just good diversity with his takedown arsenal. His striking, definitely not my favorite thing. I mean, he hits hard. It's his striking defense that worries me. If I'm betting on him, I'm worried about him getting chinned because then he does get chinned. When I don't bet on him, his chin holds up. So he's a very, very difficult fighter to put your finger on. If you're looking at it from a volume standpoint, he attempts 10 strikes per minute, whereas Modestas Bukauskas attempts 7.9. So the edge definitely goes to Cutelaba. Strike accuracy goes 43% for Cutelaba, 42% for Bukauskas. The striking defense is pretty similar, so it's still going to be a slight edge for Cutelaba getting the better of the strikes. Oddly enough, I didn't really anticipate that. I don't want him to kickbox with Modestas Bukauskas because Bukauskas has good hands as he displayed against Rafael Cerqueira, as he also displayed in his fight against Marcin Prachnio. He can win a 15-minute decision or he can crack you and knock you out. But I think the way that Modestas Bukauskas struggles is if you combine all the arts. His takedown defense sits at 71%, which is really good, but in a close competitive fight with a guy that's attempting 8 takedowns per 15 minutes, landing 4.17, I mean, that's still translating to getting 2 plus takedowns per 15 minutes. So if you tell me Cutelaba takes him down twice, I do predict that he has some good control time associated with it, because if you look at the control time for Cutelaba, in the quick win against Ibo Aslan, 1 minute. In the 3-round decision against Urselon, 59 seconds, not really good. But if you go back and you look against Kennedy and Nzechukwu, he controlled him for 3.5 minutes before he got knocked out. He's also had some bouts where he's controlled his opposition for 8 minutes. And guess what? If he doesn't have good control time, he allows his opponents back up and he takes him back down. I mean, the 8 minutes was against Devin Clark, and he scored 127 because he took him down 8 times. He also took down Dustin Jacoby 9 times in a draw. So, I don't know, man. I'm looking at this pace rating that I created, and the pace of Ion Cutelaba, when you combine the striking and you combine the wrestling, it seems like he can totally outwork Modestas Bukauskas, who may be the more precise fighter in certain areas. But even though he has a 71% takedown defense rating, I think Cutelaba is going to break through that and eventually start chaining his takedowns together. I hope he doesn't get knocked out, because if he gets knocked out, man, oh man, then I really, really struggle with picking Ion Cutelaba. But I'll be picking Cutelaba here, man. I think that the price point, represents the volatility surrounding both fighters. But give me Cutelaba, who I think has fought the better competition inside the UFC.
Oh, I totally agree about him fighting the better competition. And I also think that Cutelaba is just a better overall mixed martial artist. But, the power of Bukauskas. But also, I kind of wonder, look, when you're taking on Ion Cutelaba, are you ready for the Ion Cutelaba experience? From the weigh-in day, and you just he's going to be a guy he's going to be in front of your feet. But I do think over this past couple fights, you have seen a more patient fighter. I think when you look back early on in his UFC run, he was a guy that he was a wild man. It's kind of like my pup. He's a senior pup at this point. Okay, when he was younger, he was a wild man. He's not much a wild man anymore. And that to me is what Ion Cutelaba has become, is he's just become more of a patient fighter, looking for his opportunities. And hell, I'll say it for both fighters. I mean, have you ever really trusted either fighter? You might sit there and like the value, whether we're talking about a DFS aspect or a betting aspect. Like, I'm guessing the under 2.5 round prop is going to be juiced. You're not going to get a great line on that one. But yeah, if you roster this fight, I don't think you feel great either way.
Yeah, there's no way you feel great either way. I think for DFS though, it's probably going to be a part of the optimal lineup one way or another, based on the volatility of Cutelaba's chin, or just the way that Cutelaba fights. He's a boom bust type of guy. The smart way is to avoid it completely and hope that it's like the Urselon fight where it scores in the 70s and it's not necessary. But like, given the rest of the slate, and if I'm looking at the pace ratings, Cutelaba has the highest pace on the whole slate. He's got the highest pace on the whole slate. Wow. And this is the 4th highest pace fight on the entire fight card.
Wow. That's a crazy note there. But yeah, man, I just think you're not going to feel great no matter what side you decide to roster in this matchup. Next up, we got 𝗏𝗏 Sterling taking on Ivan Urselon. Urselon, a plus 230 betting underdog, minus 280 for Sterling, who's 9,100 on DK. Urselon is 7,100. 𝗏𝗏 won his UFC debut back in December. He was priced at 9,600 against Tokos, only scored 67 points, and we know as DFS players, we always remember that thing when we roster you someone with that kind of a salary there. All of his pro wins prior to all the stoppage wins in his career have come by TKO, KO. One of the things that probably does concern you in that matchup in his UFC debut, he was taken down 3 times in that matchup. When you look at Ivan Urselon, lost his UFC debut back in September, split decision against Ion Cutelaba. He scored 40 points in a decision loss in that one. And, kind of like Ion Cutelaba in a way, this has been an up and down fighter the past couple of years between his fights in KSW, now his fights in the UFC, 3-3 in his last 6 fights, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a weird fight, bro. Like, a super weird fight. I'm not big on this Navajo Sterling guy. I'm really not. I mean, City Kickboxing just kind of like threw all their fighters at the UFC, and they embraced them with open arms. And now we're starting to see, like, obviously Israel Adesanya is legit. Um, the whatever the hell his name is, the really good kickboxer, the 205er, is legit as hell. I don't
Carlos
know if
Olberg.
Sterling's. Yes, thank you, Carlos Ulberg. I don't know if Sterling is that same guy. I mean, I'm not really sold on him yet. The significant strikes landed per minute for Sterling nearly, I mean, nearly double up. You know, they do double up what Urselon brings to the table. I mean, he's at 5.82 significant strikes landed per minute. Urselon, small sample size, 2.6. So it translates to 10 strikes attempted per minute for Sterling and 4.6 for Urselon. So super low volume from Urselon. Granted, it's one fight, and that was a one that he thought that he did enough to beat Ion Cutelaba, which I didn't think so. But this is just a weird one, man, because Sterling is 6 years younger. In the height plus reach department, he has 9 inches. So he should be able to out kickbox this guy all day long. The issue is like if Sterling ultimately gets taken down, he's going up against a guy that has double the UFC experience. Double the MMA experience. 1 takedown per 15 minutes for Urselon at 50% accuracy translates to 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. We'll have to see, but Sterling's just a massive guy. Being that tall and having that reach, you can develop a good takedown defense, a part of your game by, mastering against the cage, getting used to, getting a whizzer, getting an underhook. On the feet, man, I think that Sterling just kind of chops away at this guy. But this, according to my metric, which combines both fighters' pace, this is the worst pace fight on the entire card. So the slowest pace a part of everybody, and that's largely due to what Urselon brings to the table because he's got the worst individual pace on the card at 3.76. Sterling's pretty average, but at 9,100, you need somebody to go out there and show out. He's already shown to be patient. He's already shown to be learning on the job, if you will. I think this is a winnable matchup for him. Not really sold on Urselon being good. Urselon has been knocked out in the past. Could Sterling do it? Perhaps, but I think it's going to be another low-volume technical decision for Sterling here. But I mean, he's at a premium where we need him to deliver, and I'm not really sure that he will.
Yeah, I mean, you want to pay that 9,100 price point, and in comparison to maybe some of the other ones that you could get to, especially when we're talking about those high 8,000 options there. Next up, we got Marc-Andre Barriault taking on Bruno Silva. Barriault a minus 150 betting fair, plus 125 for Silva, who is 7,800 on DK, 8,400 for Barriault. Barriault 5-8, won no contest in UFC. He's dropped 3 in a row. Lost his last 2, both in the first round. When you look at the other side, Silva 4-6 in the UFC. He's lost 4 straight. 3 of those come by decision. All of his UFC wins have come by TKO, KO. 3 of those 4 fights in UFC, he scored over 100 DraftKings points. And one of the things that did stick out to me, and I guess it was a little surprising to me, was the strikes land per minute right here. Marc-Andre Barriault, 5.98. Bruno Silva is only at 3.85.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the hell is Bruno Silva doing lately? I mean, he has looked awful. He has looked terrible. And in the most layup of all layups against Chris Weidman, he does not come through at all. I mean, look at this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 1-6 in his past 7, Jason, as you mentioned. That's crazy to me. I don't even know if this guy is like he wants to be here right now. I mean, against Ismail Naurdiev, he got taken down 3 times and he got controlled throughout that. I mean, 6 minutes of control time in that bout. Against Chris Weidman, he just didn't throw. He didn't do anything. I don't know what the hell he was doing. He got knocked down. He got taken down. He got controlled for 3 minutes, but, he got fouled in that fight, of course. But I don't know, man. This guy mentally, I just don't know if he's there. I don't think he's locked in. He chained his wrestling together against 𝗲𝗲 Magomedov, which could be a weapon. He attempted 7 takedowns, landed 3 of them, had 6 minutes of control time. But I don't know, man. I'm not sold that he's going to go out there and out-grapple Marc-Andre Barriault. I mean, Marc-Andre Barriault definitely has worse takedown defense, sitting at 67%. But Bruno Silva's takedown defense sits at 74%. But the volume on the feet, as you mentioned, is crazy. 3.85 for Silva, 5.98 for Barriault. Translates to 12.7 strikes attempted per minute for Barriault and 8 for Silva. So, and not only that, Barriault's going up against Bruno Silva, who just doesn't believe in defense. Silva's his striking defensive rating sits at 41%. Means that, 7.5 strikes are making it through per minute. That's crazy. So, I mean, even though Barriault should be the better striker or the better minute winner. Jesus, I could not say that. The better minute winner. I worry about Barriault getting knocked out unconscious. I really do, because that chin has been tested and he's been knocked out by people I didn't think that could knock him out. And Barriault is very, very volatile. Getting knocked out by Dustin Stoltzfus, getting knocked out against Joe Pyfer is no big deal. But in 2 fights, scoring 4 fantasy points, good God, both back-to-back first-round knockouts. Horrible, horrible look. Barriault can attempt takedowns, 0.21 takedowns per 15 minutes with 25% accuracy. It's less than 1 a fight. But, yeah, I mean, this is crazy, but, I have to pick a winner in this matchup. I don't want to. The volatility of Barriault and his chin, it makes Silva super tempting, but, being 1-6 in your past 7 makes me not want to pick you either. So I'm going to pack Marc-Andre Barriault here. I mean, the significant strikes landed per minute, the strikes attempted per minute, the better defense on the feet. I think that Barriault just beats him in the clinch, and I don't think that Silva laces up his wrestling shoes as much as he needs to in a matchup like this. So in a fight where this fight seems optimal to me, Jason. It really does. I think I'm going to go Marc-Andre Barriault.
I was thinking the same thing, and kind of like when you talk about the Cutelaba and Bukauskas fight, you're probably not going to feel great either way. But I'm more tempted to say, for me personally, in terms of DraftKings, it is draft Bruno Silva or move on. I have no faith in Barriault's chin at this point in his career. And that is and look, and there's not a lot of reason to have a lot of faith in Bruno Silva either. I mean, let's not sugarcoat this. I mean, both these guys, I mean, it's like, if you're dating, there's red flags out there. Both these guys got red flags. There is not many green flags with either one of these dudes as we sit here on May the 5th, 2025. But to me, I got to look at the fantasy score upside here, and I think it's on Bruno Silva's side of the equation.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely think I circled this fight, and if I look at my pace, this fight in general, so I like looking at this because it gives the pace of the fighters, but also the combined pace of the fight. It has the second best pace on the entire card, so it's definitely a fight I want to target.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but man, not going to feel very good about it. 2 more fights here left to break down before we get straight fight picks and listener questions. We got Santos and Lee. Santos a minus 140 betting fair, plus 110 for Lee, who is 7,900 DK. Santos is 8,300. Daniel Santos 2-1 in the UFC. This is his first fight since that decision win back in 2023 against Johnny Munoz. In his 2 UFC wins, he has scored over 100 plus points, but this to me is the stat line of Daniel Santos. He has withdrawn from not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 UFC fights for various reasons. It's insane when you go to his Tapology page and you see how many fights he has pulled out of. Lee on the other side, and it feels like we've been talking about this for a lot for the last month and a half. A fighter coming from the road to the UFC, started 2-0 in the UFC, is coming off a first-round loss in July of last year against 𝗂𝗏. Both of his UFC wins have come by decision. And not great lines when we're talking about DraftKings, Pete. 49.7 points and 72.9 points in those wins.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, good God. I mean, this fight's crazy. Man, I really like Santos, but I don't know what the hell's going on. Daniel Santos is like, Willie Cat is very, very dangerous. He lost to Julio Arce in his debut. He was losing to John Castaneda, came back, took him down twice, knocked him down, finished him brutally against the cage. And I go, holy moly, this is like a mini Charles Oliveira. And then, against Johnny Munoz, goes out there and takes down the grappler 3 times, has 10 minutes of control time. I don't know what to do here. And the reason I don't know what to do here is because I don't know how to take into account withdrawing from 5 fights, 5 pullouts because of medical issues, because of injuries. And now a bantamweight is fighting at featherweight. So I don't like that. Like, it's very confusing to me. And are all of his cancellations due to weight? What, did he know he was going to miss weight? And is that why he pulled out? Or is he having poor weight cuts throughout fight camp? Or does he have a bad injury? Like, he can't cut the weight because he can't do road work? What the hell's the difference? Like, what's going on? I mean, for him to be his entire career at 135 pounds, now you see all these, pullouts from fights, and now it's at 145 pounds. Well, he's going to be the smaller guy. I mean, automatically. He's Jung Lee is 1 year younger and has 9 inches in the height plus reach department. So that's an advantage for Lee already. Lee's in his normal weight class. Okay. So that's another advantage. Willie Cat, it's not like Willie Cat's been struggling, and he's getting outmatched. I mean, he's on back-to-back win streak, 2-fight win streak in the 135-pound weight class. So why the sudden change? So there are some major red flags, and my model likes Willie Cat Santos because of what he's done in the past. But I can't take into account the 5 pullouts. I mean, the strikes attempted for Santos sit at 11.5, whereas Jung Lee sits at 5.46. Santos is doubling up everything that Jung Lee is doing. Even the takedowns, you have 3.8 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes for Santos and 1.4 takedowns attempted for Jung Lee. But how does that translate at 145 pounds? I mean, this could be a spot where it's like after the fight, we learn about issues that Willie Cat's had, and maybe throughout the week we start to discover them a little bit more. My data likes Willie Cat, but the size, the 145-pound weight class, why haven't you been in the cage 5 more times? I'm gonna side with the data, but I bet you come fight night, I'll be increasing my Jung Lee exposure like crazy.
You remember Santos was supposed to fight last month against Davey Grant. No shows to the weigh-in. Now you're fighting up a weight class. To me, it's the red flag of all these fights he's pulled out of. I don't love it from a DFS aspect. The pick's going to be Lee for me in this one, and it is more about the concerns I have on the Daniel Santos, and I will be interested to see what he does look like on the scale when he weighs in, or scheduled to weigh in on Friday morning in Montreal. We should say, that's why in the description of the show I say, Jason Pete break down the fight scheduled for, because we know in this sport things can very much change very easily. Then our first matchup of the night, You got Katona taking on Almakhan. 𝗲𝗁, who we saw, steps up on short notice, takes the Umar fight, loses decision. But, you know, the crazy part about that is loses a 15-minute decision. He goes 5 of 25 in strikes landed in 15 minutes of fighting. Gets taken down 5 times in that matchup. He is prior to coming to UFC, 9 of his 11 wins come by TKO KO. He does have a 4-inch reach advantage. Brad Katona on the other side, decision machine. This is just who he is. 8 fights in the UFC, 500 fighter. All those fights have gone the distance. He's had 18 pro fights, and 14 of those fights have gone the distance, Pete.
Yeah, I had to do some deep diving for 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan, and the reason is because the stats were so bad, I could not put them. I mean, like, the guy looked like he was somebody out of the crowd fighting Umar Nurmagomedov because the stats made him look like the worst fighter ever. He made Blood Diamond look like a champion of how it looked like on my algorithm over here, and that's because of the dominance of Umar Nurmagomedov. But in that bout, 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan knocked down Umar with an overhand right, which kind of clipped him on the head, dropped him. But the takedown defense he was unable to stop Umar from keeping him on the mat. He did reverse position one time, got up. He's a very, very good fighter. It's just taking a fight on extremely short notice against one of the best ranked fighters in the world, possibly a future champion, was just not a recipe for success. So I went back and I watched some of his regional tape, like long tape, because he's got a ton of highlight reels out there. But I was able to watch like 𝗣𝗁𝘁 actually fight and see like, all right, what's this guy about? And I was very surprised because in UAE he picked up a big win, but also in the promotion called Octagon, he put together some good performances utilizing his wrestling. Very heavy on top. Very good takedowns. Took his opponents down, was working the pass, had good ground and pound. The referee kept standing him up, and the guy throws very, very good hand combinations and has a great right high kick as well. I was just overall impressed from what I saw from 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan. And I went back and I watched Brad Katona's fights. And I think Brad Katona's due to get knocked out. I really do. I see this guy get knocked out. I know that, against John Matsumoto, he was able to survive. He landed some good shots and a good elbow that split Matsumoto up. But Matsumoto, man, I thought that he could have knocked out Brad Katona. Katona keeps his chin up in the air like crazy. I see him open mid-combination. His hands are below his chin. I could see a guy in 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan coming in here, blowing the doors off and knocking out Brad Katona, the former Ultimate Fighter 2-time winner. And then I look and I dive into socials, and guess what? 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan, a very, very popular fighter from Kazakhstan. Guess where he's training? He's training at American Top Team. And guess who he's sparring with? He's sparring with. I'm watching videos of him sparring with on multiple days and working extensively with Alexandre Pantoja. And I know that he's a flyweight. So what? So what? I don't care. I think that Pantoja's probably out-wrestles majority of the bantamweights out there. So he's fighting and sparring Alexandre Pantoja every day. I think the one true weakness in 𝗣𝗁𝘁 Almakhan's game is possibly his submission game. But I think that Katona is a very smart fighter. He's going to come into this one trying to replicate what Umar Nurmagomedov did. And I think to his surprise, he's going to end up getting put on his back. And we've seen Katona getting taken down in the past. Merab Dvalishvili did it years ago. We've seen other fighters put Katona on his back. Even Gene Matsumoto did. I don't think he's the same type of guy when you can put him on his back. And I think that he'll be very surprised that 𝗣𝗁𝘁 is better than what the tape showed in that Umar Nurmagomedov fight. I have the fight between those two as the best, the highest paced fight out there because of the takedowns of Katona, also the boxing. I mean, if you think back and you see the matchup against Cody Gibson. Like, Katona went out there, and that was a hell of a fight, and he just traded with him. I think Almakhan will attempt less strikes, but I think that he will actually initiate the wrestling or counter the wrestling, end up on top, and then we'll see a pretty damn good performance from Almakhan. But according to my projections, Katona is one of the best underdogs on the slate, given the stats of Almakhan. So I like both fighters. I like the fight in general to target. I like Almakhan because of the unknown. I don't think many people are going to want to click on him. He's a Kazakhstan fighter, but I'm a fan. I think the kid's good, and I think he's going to be a ranked fighter to come.
If he can't stop the takedown, I have no interest in him.
I agree. I think he can, though. And I know that he couldn't against Umar Nurmagomedov. But in other fights, when fighters are trying to take him down, he stops the takedowns, and he has very good wrestling that I don't think people are aware of. Obviously, we'll have to see if it translates against Brad Katona, but I think it does, and I think that he'll actually out-wrestle Brad Katona.
Katona, 10 takedowns in his last 3 fights. Just a thought. I mean, look, that is, if Brad Katona's winning this matchup, to me, it's him wrestling him to the ground. To me, that to me is ultimately the concern. There is he can't stop a takedown, and Brad Katona just takes him down at will in terms of that matchup. So let's get right into our straight up fight picks, and we'll answer some listener questions here. The main event, I'm going to say and still Belal Muhammad.
Yeah, I'm going to go Belal Muhammad.
Co-main event, give me underdog number 1 and say and still Valentina Shevchenko.
I'm going to go Manon Fiorot.
This one, I'm going to lean Jose Aldo, but I do have some concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to root for Jose Aldo, but it's too wide. I'm picking Zahabi at this.
I'll go Natalia Silva. I'll go Mike Malott.
I'm going to go Radtke.
I'm going to take Jasmine, but I don't love it for a DFS aspect.
Interesting. I'm gonna go Jasmine.
I'll go Modestus.
I hate this fight. I'm gonna go Cutelaba.
I will go Navajo. Then I'm gonna go Bruno Silva as my next underdog.
Golly. Dude, this fight card's weird with the volatility. I'm gonna go Barriault.
Give me the underdog in Lee.
I'm going to say Santos until I see him on the scale.
Give me another underdog in Brad Katona.
Good Lord. My God, Jason. I'm going to go Almakhan.
Yeah, I totally get that there. I'm going to try to get some questions in here from YouTube before we get over into our questions that are already in our Discord channel here. Sam was saying, are we seeing either retirement from either girl in the co-main event? It wouldn't shock me if Shevchenko retired. It wouldn't shock me. I'd be shocked if Manon Fiorot retired.
Yeah, why the hell is Manon going to retire?
Well, she's 35 years old. She is on the, quote unquote, downside of her career.
It's women's MMA. She's good till she's 40, dude. She's good. She's nasty.
I mean, look, is Marine Rodriguez actually going to stay retired? I'd say no. I'd say no.
She'll be in karate combat in 3 weeks.
Dude, did you see that KO by Sam Alvey?
Yeah. Poor Tyrone's bone. Yep.
If I would have told you that like 5-6 years ago, hey, Sam Alvey's going to KO Tyrone Spong, you would have said,
that's the Zahabi Jose Aldo right there. That's the same exact thing.
You'd be like, Jay, what drugs are you on?
That's the same exact thing. Ayman Zahabi knocks out Jose Aldo in front of his hometown crowd. We would be like, what?
Yeah, you would clearly not say there. Sam's got his usual questions. Best top plays. I think Belal's got to be up there for me because of just my major questions about the takedown defense of Jack Della Maddalena. Outside of him, Mike Malott sticks out a little bit to me if he doesn't make that a striking matchup and the cardio is there. Shevchenko, if she can get the takedowns, sticks out to me.
So takedowns we're talking. I mean, Bilal has the highest takedown potential on the slate. Um, if Mike Malott's takedown defense really is at 16%, and Radtke goes out there after training with Bilal Muhammad and for whatever reason wants to tax Malott, I think that he has some high takedown ups. I think both of them do. I think Almakhan does as well, in addition to Brad Katona. So those kind of fights are ones where I think the takedowns could actually come with a high clip. And of course, Cutelaba.
Live dogs for me, Shevchenko. Zahabi, I think, is just kind of a DFS punt in terms of not necessarily from a aspect. I think Charles Radtke is a live dog at plus 200. I would throw him in that mix. I would throw Bruno Silva at plus 125, John Young Lee at plus 110, Brad Katona at plus 155.
Yeah, you got freaking underdogs galore this week. Holy shoot. Yeah, I mean, I think the Lee could become a massive, massive underdog and be super live if throughout the week we find more about Willie Santos or he has a bad weight cut. I could see the Bruno Silva argument. Shevchenko, I could see the takedown argument. Katona, I could see the takedown argument. I think legitimately, though, I think that Radtke and Zahabi have a legitimate chance of winning those fights outside of – they don't need takedowns necessarily. Like, I think they could just straight up win the fight.
I mean, let's also say this. 2025 has been the year of busting prospects. Is that –
I was looking at it.
Is that Alexa Grasso upsetting? I mean, it's kind of crazy to think the former champion upsetting the rising star in 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐵 Silva. I mean, that could be one. That's probably the one that sticks out to me the most.
I was also that's not even what I was thinking, but I mean, you make a great point. I was thinking Urselon. He's 14-4. He's going up against a 6-0 kickboxer. I mean, like Navajo Sterling. Not everybody's Adesanya. Yeah. You know, like he's good. He's huge for the division, but like, who the hell has he fought? Nobody.
Yeah. No,
you know,
I'm with
like,
you.
I don't know, bro. I mean, I might have to just go Ivan Urselon in some of these fights because of the absolute, like he made it competitive with Cutelaba. I think if you put Sterling in there with Cutelaba, it's not competitive.
Top inside the distance fighters. I would put Bukauskas and Cutelaba in that mix.
Okay.
Malott Radtke. Silva Barriault, I think, has got to be another fight that I would put in that mix.
Okay. I'll give you guys a sneak peek on the pace, and that's how I really like the fights to target. Like the Barriault Silva fight, as you mentioned, the Katona Almakhan fight, the Cutelaba Bukauskas fight. Like those three stick out to me as just like real action-packed types of fights.
Best decision odd fighters. I think for a lot of people, they're going to say Bilal Muhammad. I'm waiting for when the Hard Rock app puts up Bilal Muhammad to win in under 4.5 rounds. I want to see what that number is.
Really?
If you give me 2-1 odds on that, if it's anything over plus 200, I'm telling you, I will be making that bet. Yes, Bilal Muhammad's not a finisher. We've seen it plenty of times. So for some reason, I'm just wondering does he ultimately wear down Jack Della Maddalena as the fight goes on? That to me is a sneaky on the betting side of this situation to look out there. But I think in terms of decision odds, I think the co-main event goes to decision. Aldo Zahabi, I think likely goes to decision. Grasso Silva, I think likely goes to decision. Those to me are your best decision fights.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, the Aldo Zahabi fight, I think, is a given. It goes the distance. And then, of course, the co-main event I think that goes the distance as well. I can't see how that finishes.
Yeah. Highest leverage plays at the high 8Ks. If we're gonna put the 8,500 price tag in there, I think I don't know, for some reason I think Malott Fiorot's gonna have a nice leverage spot just because a lot of people are gonna get in Shevchenko. Natalia Silva might be a good leverage spot because I don't know how many people want to get to her at 8,800 just based on her history. Any other ones that stick out to you as a leverage spot in that range?
I mean, the Natalia Silva, as you meant, like, I think Almakhan is a leverage spot because everybody thinks he's terrible. Like, everybody sees exactly what you saw, the takedowns of Katona, and I don't blame you. 10 takedowns in 3 fights. One of those was against Jesse Butler, who was up or down 2 weight classes or whatnot on super short notice. Another one was against John Matsumoto, Garrett Armfield. I think that Almakhan's in that Matsumoto Armfield type of category. So I'm willing to bet that women's MMA is the leverage spot per usual. It's just who,
Yeah. Optimal plays, main event, co-main event. I think you have to throw in there optimal plays. Bukauskas, Cutelaba, Barriault, Silva. And those last two, you're not going to feel good on either side.
No.
Takedown king and queen. Is the queen Jasmine?
Yeah, it has to be.
King?
Belal.
Yeah, it's got to be Belal. It's got to be Belal. Top pump plays. I'm going to go Charles Radtke as my top pump play.
Yeah. Charles Radtke, baby. Chuck Buffalo.
Other punt plays that I would throw out there, man, you brought up a great point on Ivan Urselon as a punt play.
Mainly just from a wiki capping type of approach of where you're sitting there and you see the guy having 20 MMA fights against a 6-0 prospect. And this is when you said busted prospects, that is the first one I thought of because I think Natalia Silva's legit. Like, absolutely legit. But who's untested going up against a veteran, and it's Urselon. I need to watch a little bit more Urselon tape before I, plant a flag or anything because there are some things he has to overcome, which I think is very, very difficult. Sterling's 6 years younger, and in the height and reach department, Sterling has 9 inches. So he's a massive human being. So maybe it looks better on paper than it actually is.
Mention this comment from Dexter. FanDuel has Belal at plus 440 inside the distance and 1,100 by sub. I would just take the plus 440. I'm not trying. I understand why you might want to chase that plus 1,100. I would just take the plus 440.
Wow. That's
a crazy number, by the way. That is a crazy number.
That is really good.
Holy moly. I know for the Hard Rock, it's not till later in the week that you actually get those numbers. But yeah, that I will be looking at Belal inside the distance props. Top captains and MVPs. Look, Belal is going to be heavy owned as a captain, MVP, and very understandable why he is going to be because of that takedown upside. I mean, look, anyone who's got takedown upside, you have to look at in terms of that. Like, if I was looking to go somewhere else, I almost feel like if you want to get leverage in those captain contests, you probably got to go away from, and even though it's going to scare the crap out of you because Belal Muhammad could go out there and get 200 plus points as a captain. God, is it? I mean, you're looking at Jasmine. I'm looking at Malott.
I wouldn't mind putting Jasmine there.
I really don't want to. I would go Natalia Silva there. Grasso, if she goes the takedown route, could be an interesting captain spot. I mean, that would be super key, but I almost feel like just screw it. Don't overthink it. Just put Belal as the MVP.
Yeah, I'm telling you, right? Sometimes the best is the most, don't overthink it.
I mean, think about this. If he goes out there with the game plan he had against, let me find my stat here. 9 takedowns, 192 strikes, 12 minutes control time. If he does that and you don't have him as a captain, you're probably not cashing that contest.
Yep.
I mean, plain and simple. Plain and simple when it comes to that. Jason and Pete special. You know what? I like Brad Katona as an underdog, but knowing my history, I shouldn't roster it.
Yeah.
I mean, like last week, God, I felt like I was watching some low-level regional fight.
That fighting was terrible last week. It was horrible. It was a great week for me to go to a concert.
I'm going to tell you this right now, man.
And, like, I really wasn't even enjoying the fights. I was just like, this. Well, when Homegirl won in the first fight, I go, Miller won, really? Like, that sets the tone for the whole night, you know? And it was
I'm saying this right now. Like, if you did not watch that fight, there's no reason to go back and watch that fight. No reason. If you go back and watch that fight, I have a lot of serious questions of what's going on in your life. I mean, dude, if they put a striker against Juliana Miller next fight, she's going to get KO'd. Bad. Oh, my God. I'm watching the fight just going, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, I know. We're betting on the lowest stuff, you know. Golly.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, just absolutely unbelievable there. You mentioned about the 𝐴2 fight, probably a fight you got to, probably going to be an optimal fight in terms of that. Wow. Sam's number's pretty interesting here. 4.5 on finishes on this card. That just seems too low. I'll say over just because I think it's too low.
I agree.
Yeah. Tristan, best leverage play. We'll see where salaries, where ownership comes in. Right now, I think I'm looking at Manon Road. I'm looking at Aldo, and I'm looking at Zahabi as leverage plays.
I like it.
We've kind of gone over takedown upsides. No reason to kind of repeat ourselves to that. In terms of ranking the 9K options, so we got Sterling at 9,100, Jasmine 9,200, Aldo 9,000, and then Saint Denis is going to probably be at least 93, if not more.
About that. I made a lineup too, and I'm like, I like this lineup a lot, but there's no way I can't get to Saint Denis.
Yeah, I would put Saint Denis number 1. I'd put Jasmine 2. Oh God, Sterling 3, Aldo 4.
Yeah, I got Sterling way ahead of Aldo.
Yeah, just not great there. Something to mention, of course, we'll be back here next week. We do have that fight night card that's going to be inside the UFC Apex. Burns and Morales, which I believe was actually initially supposed to be on this card. It got moved to be the main event of that one. If you are looking to watch some other MMA, I don't know where the hell it's going to be at. Paul Hughes headlines PFL Europe on Saturday. No idea if they're showing this fight even in the United States. If they are, Paul Hughes, he's 4.5 to 1 betting favorite.
How do we not know what PFL is doing? I'm more invested in MMA than anybody. You and I, both. Yeah. And people ask me, where's PFL? What's going on? I go, dude, I don't even know. I can't keep up with it. I have no idea what the hell they're doing, when they're doing it. Every single time I go on Tapology, that's the only reason I know there's a PFL card. When I'm scrolling to next cards, I go, oh, dang, there's a fight this week.
Well, I remember watching PFL last week, and there was a commercial for it. Like, I knew Paul Hughes had a fight coming up in Belfast.
He's very good, by the way.
But I didn't know the exact date of it. I knew it was coming up. Didn't realize it was actually this Saturday. And when it comes to these PFL Europe events and all these other international events you do, like, just stream them on YouTube, man. Just, I mean, Paul Hughes is one of your best 155ers you have under contract. You gotta
get eyeballs on him.
Yeah. You gotta put eyeballs on him. I did look at other regional MMA. Nothing really stuck out to me in terms of notable names that stuck out to me on the regional scene. But there's a ton of regional scene action going on here. Of course, be sure to check out Pete's Patreon. The link to that is below. Of course, start to score
it's
the
on
offer.
The Zone, my buddy said. The Zone. The app that nobody owns. Who the hell owns DAZN? My buddy, apparently.
The only time I ever subscribed to DAZN was, now is that DAZN in the United States or DAZN internationally?
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, DAZN, like, it's an expense. I think it's like $20 a month. If you are if you are into boxing and like you watch boxing a lot, there's value on DAZN. But if you're just an MMA fan and you're like, hey, I'm a casual boxing fan, there is no reason to get DAZN. I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to shit on DAZN. I'm just being honest. I know it's shit on him. I know. It probably sounds like I'm shitting on him, but
yeah, I mean, you definitely are. But
okay, maybe I am.
Yeah, well, no. Listen, the PFL deserves everything that it's getting because they're stupid. They make the worst business decisions. They got a guy, running the company, pulling the strings of the company that has no idea what the hell he's doing. He isn't even a fan of MMA and is too honest and comes out and says, "I don't even watch MMA." The hell are you doing buying PFL or running PFL? I mean, like, get this guy out of here. I mean,
some of the things that we see in this sport, it's just, I'm never surprised. Like you're surprised, but you then go, I shouldn't be surprised. Like,
no, we've seen waves of promoters. We've seen everything. Bjorn Rebney, Scott Coker. We've seen it all, and this is a dark time for MMA. Let's be real. I mean, look at these UFC cards we're seeing. It's low level. It's terrible fight quality of a lot of them. Like, I mean, like, this is UFC 315. I think, like, you have to talk yourself into watching this outside of the main event. I mean, outside the main card. And the quality is just watered down for whatever reason. And
hey, you know what I'm looking forward to?
Who?
I was very critical of the UFC 314 commentary.
Who is
Joe
it?
Rogan? It's no Joe Rogan because this is international. It's Dom Cruz with Daniel Cormier. Dom Cruz will call out Daniel Cormier if he's not prepared.
Yeah,
Dom Cruz don't give a fuck.
Who was the commentary that you were critical of? It was
DC
Joe
and Rogan.
And
DC and Rogan.
Yeah, I don't like that combination.
I've not liked that combination for some time, and it was something of actually sitting at home for the entire fight card, and when they had no idea why Kyle Barriault was in the corner of 𝗵𝗁𝐿, it's like, dude, go on Instagram, like,
yeah.
this
what
isn't news. And then when they're like, hey, Sean, when's the last time Patricio fought a 3-round fight?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't they got guys in the ear telling them stuff too? Like, what the hell are we doing here?
Hey, you know what? There probably was someone back in the truck that said, just fuck it. Let him just say the shit.
The Contender Series cast, the crew, is my favorite groups. Felder, Sanko, Bisping. Like, I
tell
like
you,
those.
Felder. So last week it was Felder and Bisping, and I enjoyed the hell out of that broadcast because I think particularly Paul Felder. Paul, to me, he has a way of describing what's going on to where you don't have to be like all in on this sport to understand. To me, he does a great job of just dumbing it down.
Yeah.
And that to me is what makes a color analyst great. I don't care what sport we're talking about, but if you can describe it in a way that anyone watching can understand what's going on, that to me is a great analyst. And I think Paul Felder may be the best analyst the UFC has.
Yeah, I think Sanko's close too, man. She's nipping on everybody's heels. She's very, very good. Bisping's hit or miss. I think for the most part, I do enjoy Bisping commentary. I can't stand Dom Cruz, even though.
No. Like, if you tell me it's Bisping and Dom Cruz, I'm getting the popcorn ready because they're just gonna jar back and forth at each other. It's like they're just looking to throw digs at each other. Like, those two, if they did a podcast together, it may not last very long because they're probably gonna get pissed off at each other.
Yeah,
but Tom Cruise, I'm telling you, like, he's a dude that he doesn't give a shit. Like, his attitude's like, hey, you like me? Great. You don't? I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And he was probably one of the most unlikable champs for a very long time because of his attitude. I'll tell you what, man, I expected more from DC. I think he's gotten worse. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's like because he's just a busy guy, but I'm definitely not big on DC being a part of the broadcast as much as I used to be.
Yeah, to me, I think he did a lot better when he wasn't paired with Joe Rogan. You know, because it's like
he tries to be a comedian every single time. I don't like that,
dude. It's like when I was working in radio. And these comedians would come in, and you would hear like the DJ trying to be a comedian with a comedian. Like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. They're the comedian. Like you're not.
Yeah, dude.
By the way, how was the Kane Brown show?
It was good. It was great. I mean, it was a great performance. I live out in the sticks now, so I'm a country boy. So Kane Brown, Scotty McCreery. I don't remember the girl's name, Ashley Cook or something like that. I don't know. No. It was cool though. I don't really go out a lot at all. But I enjoy going to concerts with Bree for sure.
I'm familiar with Kane Brown. The other people you said, no clue. Like there's my buddy Chris has a running joke. You go out, you meet him, go out, we're just hanging out, maybe playing some darts, maybe playing some pool, and, country music will come on the touch tunes machine. And we have a game. Jason, who's the artist?
Yeah, ain't no way you know. Yeah.
I'm like Bilal Muhammad getting knocked down. It's most likely not going to happen.
You're like Bilal Muhammad finishing a fight. It's most likely not happening. So, goodness gracious. If he finishes Jack Della Maddalena, I'll be super surprised. Like, I know that you're talking about that inside the distance number. He's a decision machine. How's he going to finish him? What do you think he's going to finish him with? Submission?
I think he wears him down.
And does what?
With his wrestling. Wears him down.
Yeah, I know. But then how's he get him out of there? TKO or...
I would say more TKO than a ground and pound. Yeah. It just referee comes in and stops the fight.
Maybe. We'll see.
Hey, look, people may have, if people may have had a problem with that stoppage in the Santos Ponzino fight, I did it primarily because I had a bet on Tito Rodriguez inside a distance.
Yeah. My God.
I mean, even though when Ponzino got up, I go, oh, that's a good stoppage. Like, homeboy was on weak legs.
He was on a different planet. Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to see how this fight card goes. Excited to see if the titles change hands. Very, very excited to see if Bilal Muhammad wins, what his next move is. I think that Manon Fiorot having the opportunity of being a French champion is massive for the UFC. I think that they can combine some big fights, a part of a French card. We got several French athletes out there that are pretty dominant. I mean, I think, isn't William Gomis French?
Yes.
You got, is Morgan Charrier French?
I believe so.
And then you got Cyril Gahn. Like, you know what I mean? Like, French cards could be loaded. So, if Manon wins, man, it's massive. Especially because not only is it Shevchenko, but you are literally, like, establishing French MMA, which is something that everybody was hoping Cyril Gahn was going to be able to do it. Well, my buddy, who was just texting me before, was the biggest Cyril Gahn fan against John Jones.
There's rumblings of Aspinall gone again. There's some rumblings of that. It would make sense if Fiorot wins. Typically September is the time of the year where the UFC goes to France to have her if she gets to win on Saturday, to have her first title defense in France, which would probably be headlining a fight night card. I don't think they would do a pay-per-view in France. That's just my general thoughts on.
And they probably run it back too.
Yeah, he would. Well, the Weili fight's sitting out there. If Weili wants to move up, which there's been a lot of speculation that she wants to move up to try to become a 2-division champion. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of Fight HQ. As always, we appreciate everyone who tunes in for every episode of the podcast. Be sure to join Pete's Patreon page so you get a hold of his algorithm and help you develop your lineups. We'll have that DraftKings contest later on this week. Be on the lookout for that. And be sure to hop in our Discord channel. Myself and Pete, we'll hop in there with maybe some of our other thoughts as the week goes on. On Saturday, I'll throw in the bets that I'm going to be placing. As more props become available and I see some things and some parlays, whatnot, I'll put that in there. Pete, anything else you want to mention?
No, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. If you can hit that like button, get us over 100 likes, it really goes a long way. We're creeping up towards our goal of 2,000 subscribers. Join the Discord. As Jason said, it's free to join. Tons of conversation, over 300 people in that Discord community that's free to join. And of course, if you're looking for more data, you can click the description below for my Patreon link. As always, Jason and I appreciate doing this, and we enjoy doing it, and hopefully we can make some money on Saturday.
And we're going to talk to you next week right here on the Fight HQ podcast.